Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latanya Smith, and I am the CEO and founder of Speak Life to Youth and Children, SLYC, SLYC International. And today is the first day of our Purpose, Passion, and Career program. And the person who will be presenting is a very good friend of mine in Tallahassee, Florida. She is passionate about what she does. I love her spirit. I love her smile. She's a jokester. She's funny, but she's also serious about what she does as well. Her name is ReAndra Clayton. And just to give you a little background, she is a licensed real estate agent. She has been a licensed real estate agent since 2007. She also pairs banking, credit union, personal finances, lending, and specializes with first-time home ownership. She's a native, which I didn't know until I got the bio. She's a native of Germany, raised in Miami. She graduated from Florida A&M University and certification from Florida State University. I'm gonna let her tell more about her story, and I'm letting her take the microphone, so it is on you, Miss ReAndra.
Good morning. Thank you for that introduction. You took half of my speech though. Good morning. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be on. Wonderful LT, my friend, loves to put me on the spot, so I'm learning to say yes in 2023. So as LT introduced me, I am ReAndra Clayton. I'm from Miami, Florida, a resident of Tallahassee, Florida. I've been here so long, most of my friends tell me to stop telling people that I'm from Miami. I moved here to attend the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And guess what? I came here thinking that I was going to pharmacy school and running off to make big bucks. Well, by the time I got through Chemistry 101, I knew that that was not the direction I was going in. And I had some decisions to make. So I decided to, through a rough journey at the beginning, get my degree, my bachelor's in business administration from the School of Business and Industry here at FAMU that has an excellent reputation. And left there with that degree, still not knowing what I wanted to do when I grow up. And so from that point, I continued to work in banking, which I had started doing as a student, and transitioned into credit unions. Both worlds are very different. My passion is with credit unions, and just to keep that simple. And then I found myself kind of working in some background industry of banking and credit unions, and still trying to navigate what I wanted to do, because even with the degree, those things weren't showing that they would pay me well, and as well as SBI had prepared me to expect to make. And so I'm like, well, what am I doing out here? But I did decide to continue to stay here in Tallahassee, in spite of wanting to get back to the city, because of my passion for my connection to my church. And still just pedaling along and trying to navigate, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Where am I going to go? And didn't necessarily have the answer. So I just did what was available, because I tend to adapt well to whatever I put my hands to, which is a gift that only God can give. But I didn't know how to determine what should that look like for the long haul. So that being the case, I went over to Florida State University and said, well, I'm gonna get my grad certification in event management. So it's not an actual degree. It's just that I had to have an undergraduate degree in order to get that level of certification. And so I did that, and I'm like, okay, now what? Well, I happen to be on a job, and I've done other jobs. I work in a hospital, just an array of things that I've done. And but I was on this particular job, and for the first time, I wasn't trying to resign within a year's time. I was actually content and satisfied and enjoying what I was doing. And I remember one day saying, this is weird that I'm okay. And okay. But I got a nudge. And I hope I don't offend anybody, but I got a nudge from God. And he was like, it's time to move on. And I'm like, say what, my God? And I am very analytical. I love mathematics. I love things that make sense. I love to be able to paint a picture to see where I'm going, all the things, right? But he was like, yeah, it's time to move on. And I'm like, move on. And he was telling me entrepreneurship. And I'm like, say what now? Like full commission? Like, huh? Me, God, you sure? And so he's like, yeah. And so I said, well, okay, Lord, give me a year. Just give me a year to figure this out, to map the pieces together. And in the effort to do that, I'm saying that to God, but I don't know that I was really truly putting my mind to it. Well, God is so funny in how he navigates us through this life that I said, I was going through some things at work all of a sudden. And I'm getting all the accolades about, how well I work and all the things. But there were still some challenges that I was faced with because I would be challenged with timeliness, getting to work on time. I work all night and work all day and get the job done and more than the job done. And again, all the accolades, but I was walking in that door late. And I'm like, oh, something's got to give. And so in the midst of that, I'm remembering, he's telling me that I need to make a change, and I'm not, in my mind, not ready to make that change. And so I got sick. I had been off of work a couple of days, and my nerves were shot going back to work. I was just so just anxious and all these things that, I can't even explain. And I remember that day on the way to work, I said, when I get there, I'm going to do this task and that task. Because remember, I'm a planner, I'm an organizer. So I got my whole day figured out of how I'm going to play catch up, because I don't want to be on their radar from being late all the time. And now I've been out sick for all these days, right? And so I said, when I got to my desk, I had a headache that I could not explain. And headaches were not foreign to me. But this headache, man, it was hard to keep my head lifted up at my desk. And I remember moving around at my desk and all these things. And I happened to look up and notice I had been there an hour. And I was like, wait a minute, I haven't done any of my work. What have I been doing all this time? And when I looked down, I had packed the box at my desk. And I'm like, girl, what you doing? So this box is packed. And I was like, okay. So I slid the box under my desk and got ready to start doing some work. But again, my head was splitting so bad, I could barely lift my head up. And I was so fearful to go and tell my boss, because I had just first day back on the job. Well, I go in and I finally get the gumption to see the boss, because there's nothing else I just was not functional. And I went in, and this was my boss's boss, because my direct boss was out that day. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I mean, like, I'm in so much pain. There were tears rolling down my face. I'm scared. Didn't realize it was, some of this was anxiety. And I said, I am so sorry. I know I've been out and I'm ready to get back to work, but I'm in so much pain. Can I at least just go out to my car and rest my head for a little bit and come on back in? I didn't ask to go home. And she said, well, you know what, ReAndra? And it's the same person that had given me one accolade after another before I was out sick. She said, I have grounds to terminate you. I could terminate you. And that was based on that party history. And she said, sat back in her chair. She said, and you know what? That's what I'm going to do. Let me tell y'all something. Everything that I could imagine would have been my response was the opposite. Immediately, my head stopped hurting. The tears stopped falling from my eyes. And I looked up at the lady. And I said, thank you. And that's just so out of character for me. I'm like, thank you. And I got up. And if you remember from the beginning of this story, I was able to walk back to my desk and grab my box and leave. And I'm like, wow, what just happened? The first person I had to get on the phone with was my spiritual mom, Pastor Leslie. Like, Mom, guess what just happened? This is an hour into my workday. With no plans of what's next. I had to remember that nudging from God to move on, that I hadn't even acted on yet or thought through. And she was like, it's all good, and we were on the phone laughing, just, praising God. Cause I said, you know what? I didn't lose a job today. This was no loss to me. This was God's doing. And so I remember on my way home, just kind of recognizing, like all the things that I like to have calculated and figured out were not my story at this point. And I needed to figure out what was next. And so I remember the Lord telling me, use what's in your hand. And so I had already been licensed in real estate back in 2006 is when I went to school. And my objective in doing that was to just have that as an educational piece. I recognized that people in our culture were fearful about home ownership. And I wanted to be able to empower people that they could do this. Mind you, I hadn't done it yet, but there was something in my person that wanted to teach people that you can do this, encourage them, you can do this, and just have the information. I'm not a sales girl, those are just not, again, I'm calculated. That's not what you do. I'm not commission based. These are all the things in my head that it's like, nope. And so I said, okay, Lord. So I went to real estate school. I got my license. And I shadowed some people just to get some more experience, because anybody that goes in this industry, and I can encourage it for a lot of reasons, and I'll mention it at a later time if time permits. But I'm just like, let me, education in real estate isn't enough. Putting your hands to it is what's going to get you the experience you need. And so I shadowed some people. I had the privilege of selling my pastors their beautiful home, and just, being in the background of having some one-on-one experience. And so I did that on and off, worked in in different industries, banking, credit union, all the things that I mentioned, in the hospital, on and off. And then I just let it rest, because again, I just wanted to learn enough to empower other people. And I remember my pastors used to tell me, what was it like the first thing you remember to do? Like, go back into your childhood. What are some of the things that you desire? And one of the things I remember saying, I'm gonna have my house, and there's gonna be all this land. I'm gonna build some other places in the back, and make sure that somebody that's in transition is homeless, needs somewhere to go, has somewhere to go. And I just had this whole vision about how I was gonna make sure people could not just have somewhere to live, but get them transitioned into a space to call their home. But I didn't see that as real estate. I just saw it as being, being able to bless people and get them transitioned to where they were going to go, so that they had a place to call home. And so, again, I didn't do anything with that real estate license all those years. And so fast forwarding back to God saying, use what's in your hand. I'm like, oh yeah, I just got my grad certification in event management. That's what I want to do. I'm on my way. And I'm like, no, there's too much that I would have to figure out for marketing, for licensure, for business, my business license, the business name. Like, I would literally have to start from scratch. And I'm like, I got overwhelmed real quick. And the Lord was like, ReAndra, your real estate license, everything is already in place for you to just say yes. And so I was like, okay, all right, well, let's get out here and give it a try. So that's how I found myself in real estate. It was very unexpected, very unplanned, very much God. And so it's amazing, because I remember even at one point looking for what it took to get through school. I had to pay for school, I had to pay for licensure, pay for these different things. And my life wasn't necessarily equipped to take on those expenses. And I shared this part to say, I remember, again, my spiritual mom, Pastor Lisa, she said, write a letter, reach out to your family and, your loved ones, and ask for their support. And when I tell you, writing that letter caused me to recognize what support looked like and didn't look like. And, but I don't regret doing it, because I knew where to go to when I needed some backup.
That's like the thing.
Okay, I'm back. You can hear me now? All right, but having that encouragement, because that's what it takes in entrepreneurship. You need a village. And so it was so hard to get through that letter writing process, or the sending that letter out, that even my own one of my parents was like, I cannot believe you sent this letter. I cannot believe you're asking people for this. And even through the journey of real estate, you sure that's what you want to do? That's not going to bring you money. You need to do this and you need to do that. And while my village was saying, girl, you got this, God's got you. And so that calculated part of me was pulled between both of those worlds and both of those voices, but I've been pushing forward. And so I've done full-time real estate over the years. I've done part-time real estate, and I'm back full-time again in the last since 2021. And I wouldn't trade it. I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning how to make all the money. But it's not financially driven, it's passion driven. It's because I wanted to make sure that people in my community knew that they could have home ownership, that it's not bigger than us. When I do one-on-one consultations, which is my very first step when I'm introduced to someone that's interested in home ownership, I let them know, we don't wait to do this one-on-one when you think you're ready. I want to do this with you as soon as possible, so that if I need to get you in with someone to do financial counseling, credit repair, if there's some savings that you need to do. Some people are going through relationship changes, maybe from marriage to divorce. Those require some transition points and some finalization to make sure that those things are in place before signing a mortgage and deed. And so there's just a lot of pieces that are moving that I want to make sure that when you truly are ready, that you're not surprised because there were things that you weren't aware of. And so I am elated to find myself doing this, even in all the uncalculatedness, if that could be a word, of it, even in the unsurety, even in the not loving to be on social media, marketing myself, like all the things that are there to push my business that much further. But what I find to be such a blessing is many times when my colleagues are making calls, trying to find buyers, trying to find sellers, that I'm getting calls, and that they come in right on time. And so I know that there is still that much more for me to continue to put my hands to explore my business at different levels. But when I tell you from the beginning of starting this story till now, that this has been all God, and it's been a vision that I couldn't figure out, because for many years I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't quite know, or I can even be honest enough to say I want to go to law school and I want to be an attorney, but I was scared to do that. I'm like, I don't have time for that. I don't, school's not my thing. All these things and that I could come up with as to why not. But at the end of the day, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I could have, there's nothing I can go back to point in and say, oh yeah, this is the day I knew that I should go this route. In the process, this is just where he placed me when it's all said and done. And so I am grateful to have that opportunity. In real estate, it is most lucrative to work with listings, as we call them. And what that means is that I get to put the sign in the yard for the person who owns the home to get them to sell it. And that puts me in a position to make income from both sides of the transaction. And even in knowing that, my passion remains first-time home buyers. And nobody can shake that. And so, have I put signs in the yard? Yeah, I have. But I always know that my passion is to work with first-time home buyers, to get people transition from paying someone else's mortgage by being a renter versus having their own. The scripture tells us about leaving an inheritance and being able to be a blessing to our children, our children's children. And that means something, because we're somebody's children's children, right? And so it's a blessing to be able to be in this place that I couldn't have imagined And my business is continuing to flourish in ways that I couldn't describe. So I'm grateful. But that is how I found myself in this industry. And there's more I'm sure I could share, but if it's okay with you, LT, can I go ahead and open up to see if anyone has some questions about my journey to real estate? Is that okay, LT?
Yes, that's fine. I had myself on mute. There are a couple of people that's on. So if you have any questions, those who are looking into purchasing their first home, any young people that will be watching this video in the future, if you have any questions about a first home, Ms. ReAndra will provide her contact information as well. But does anybody have a question, or you can put it in the chat about first-time home ownership?
Or even industry related, if you're interested in real estate, sales, entrepreneurship, there are an array of things I could potentially answer even in that regard on the career path. So.
Okay, no hands are raised, no questions as of yet, so you can continue.
Yeah, I think what's important, or one of the things that I thought was important that I learned on this journey, is going back to the story about reaching out to my family and not necessarily getting the support that I had anticipated or hoped for. Is that, you know, when God gives you a vision, when he gives you a dream, when he gives you direction and what he has designed you to do, it does not mean that people are jumping on your bandwagon. So it was definitely necessary and needed when I talked about having that village to help me be motivated and to move forward in spite of the other voices, the voices of the people that I had trusted, you know, for the over 20 and 30 years in my life. But there were new voices in my that I was in relationship with, where people were saying, you can do this, you got this. They could see what God was saying when I couldn't see it. And so I put that out there because sometimes we find ourselves desiring something that may not be popular, that may not be supported, but it no less means that this is what we're to press forward to and into. So and to this day, now that parent calls and says, hey, how many sales you had this week? How many closes did you have this month? And it took them about a good 15 years or so before I began to hear that from them, to let me know that they supported me in a way now that they hadn't supported me in a way before. And so definitely, especially to our youth, do not be discouraged if you find that there are things that you desire and want to pursue that may not bring you the support that you may have hoped for on the front end, because it'll eventually come. I even have found myself in friendships where people are like, oh, you know, you're the person I'm calling, you're the person I'm reaching out to. And, you know, when their time came, they may have called and they put me to work. And when it came time to sign a dotted line, another agent made the money. And my biggest thing has been, there's enough business to go around. I don't have to be a crab in a barrel about having sales. The sales I'm supposed to have, I will have. And so there have been some even challenges in relationships sometimes because people say they support you and they don't. And one of the things that is important to me is that, you know, if this is not what we're doing, it's okay. Just, you know, just let me know, at least give me the heads up. Don't put me to work and let somebody else get paid to do the work. But, you know, there's something about having integrity and confidence and in this thing where you don't have to, you know, lose relationships or fight people to make a business. You can do this, and you can do it with peace of mind, even when the supporters that you think would be there aren't there.
Could you expound on it? You touched on it a couple of times, the difference between the non-support and the village, whereas the village may not necessarily be blood related.
Oh yeah.
Could you expound on that?
Yeah, I don't know what else to add to what I shared. As a matter of fact, that makes me think about, so I have another parent that is now deceased. And when I tell you, they were one of my greatest supporters. And it wasn't until they passed that I said, wait a minute, I need to get back to my business. I need to do this, and wish that I had done it a little sooner, because I know they would have cheered me on. But I definitely still feel their support, even in their physical absence from this earth. Again, my church family, my pastors, eventually my biological family, it makes the difference. But again, to lock God in to telling him who that support should be, that's when we'll find ourselves discouraged and depleted with, from having the confidence that we need to press in. So the encouragers will come, the supporters will come, and I'm grateful because my encouragers and my supporters aren't just voices, but they're also people that put me to work and let me earn a commission, but more importantly, allowed me to be a part of their journey. I would tell my pastor's testimony about their home, but they do it so well. So I won't take the time to do that today. But you know, there are people that they are a couple that have brought people in and out of their home to make sure it's like they lived out my vision of wanting to make sure people had somewhere to go. And so I got to watch them do that. And people have gone in and out. And there was a season in my life where I was one of those people where I knew I had somewhere to lay my head. And to watch them be those people and then get to a point where they had a unction from God that, hey, you need a bigger home. You're going to have a bigger home. And they received the vision from him about what that looked like. And the short part of the story is they wound up walking into a home and paid a quarter of the price. And it's a beautiful home, a gorgeous home with plenty of space. And even in this much larger home, guess what? The rooms stay full. They are still making sure that people have somewhere to lay their head. So when I kept thinking that I couldn't accomplish what I saw as a little girl, because I was like, oh, it takes money. I got to be able to buy land. I got to be able to do all these things. God said, no, there's a way to accomplish this, and I'm going to take you that way. And so being able to be a part of their transaction is just one of the stories of how I was able to be a part of what I had a vision to do as a little girl, and I'm living it through being a part of their life, being a part of their transaction, being a part of their, family and village. So, yeah, support is huge and it's needed. And again, it may not come in the form that you expected, but when it comes and it makes you stronger for the journey.
Okay, we have a question in the chat. What is some advice you would give someone that's 18 on looking for places or buying their first house?
Nice. So getting started early, that's great. Having a vision this early, that's awesome. And that's a great question. I definitely would say, make sure, I don't know if you're a college student or not. A lot of times when we get on college campuses, people are sending us paperwork to fill out for this credit card, and you can have this loan and doing this and that. You want to be very strategic in the moves you make. We're not accepting credit cards all over the place. We're not applying for credit all over the place. We want to be conscientious of the financial decisions we make. Being able to be save, if you're in a position to save money, pay yourself first. When when we have these financial classes, pay yourself first, and that's you putting aside savings. So saving money, making sure that you're conscientious about credit, and your selections, and applying for credit, what type of credit you're acquiring, those type of things. Those are some of the first things you want to be mindful of to prepare yourself for home ownership. Because when you deal with lenders, they're looking at the big picture, and today, the way lenders systems operate, there's nothing you can hide from them. And so you want to be able to answer the questions and make sure that you're in alignment with what's needed for that. The other thing, when I talk about being conscientious of your credit selections and that sort of thing, is one of the things is and I lost my train of thought, I'm so sorry, is the income to debt ratio. That's a big thing. So you can make a lot of income, but if you have just as much debt, that's something that keeps people from home ownership. So again, those things, conscientious of your credit selections, making sure you're not allowing people to pull your credit all over the place, and saving money. Those are going to be some of the big things. And let me say this for people that are thinking about home ownership. You can have home ownership and not have a big bank account. There's some reasons why it's going to be important to have a savings, but it doesn't mean that not having a big savings can keep you away from that. I do a lot of teaching for first-time homeowners through our Tallahassee Lenders Consortium that gives funds for first-time home buyers for closing costs and down payment assistance. So it's not about necessarily needing big bucks to walk in the front door of your home, but it's about being strategic and strategizing, because when you're not renting anymore, you don't get to call the landlord and have them bring in the plumber that they at their expense. You're going to be calling the plumber, and it's going to be at your expense or your home warranty expense. And so those type of things are things that we talk about in more detail to help you prepare for the journey. But yeah, so.
Could you explain what is the difference between good credit, bad credit, and no credit?
So that's a great question. I was in a personal situation with someone with no credit. This person had no credit score at all. The only thing on their credit report was medical bills that had been delinquent. And we were able to sit down with someone to help them acquire credit. So not having a credit score would be a no credit situation. Not having any past credit history or credit lines, as they call them. So no credit card in the past, no, anything that would show up on your credit report. So credit cards, vehicle purchases, home purchases, those things that show up out there that accumulate in order for you to get a score. Credit scores can go up to 800, 850. And so in kind of what you find in the average is people are in the mid 600s. So mid 600 is absolutely the lowest you want to be in. Anything lower than that on a score means that we have some work to do, and that's okay. We can do the work. I've done the work personally over the years to get myself where I needed to be for home ownership and other things that I desired to do. And then again, above the mid sixes, definitely getting in the sevens is really good. It's a really good place to be in. But being mindful that, your credit score is going based off of how many things you have on your credit, accumulating, how much of that credit you're using, especially when you're talking about revolving credit, which goes back to credit card usage. Just because you have $1,000 you can use on your credit card doesn't mean you spend all $1,000, because what that says to a lender is that you can't afford to live. And so we want to dictate what that narrative is that the lender is hearing and seeing when they pull your credit. If you have multiple credit cards and they all have $1,000 limits, knowing how to strategize where you're placing that credit so that having one all loaded up and the others down is a very different conversation than someone that has them streamlined across those multiple cards. So things like that. Even bill payments, paying your bills on time, your cell phone bill, your rent, all these different things, your utilities, those are things that could be useful for people that have less credit or no credit in a situation to be able to acquire credit. So it all matters. It all matters. And I'm clear, life happens. Sometimes we're doing what we got to do to get where we got to go, and that's fine. But having a conversation with the right people when you start seeing the struggle come into play is most advantageous to you for the long haul than kind of getting in that bubble because you're kind of feeling like life's on fire. You don't know what to do, so you just do, use what you got. But yeah, those are some things to consider when you talk about good, bad, or no credit.
You have a question in the chat. Do you still believe that you are not a good salesperson? And if not, how did you change?
Boy, I tell you, my pastors come for me. They don't let me off the hook with nothing. No, when I said that, I knew what I was saying. And that wasn't to say that I am, let's see, how can I articulate this? I am not making a declaration that I'm not a good salesperson. But what I am wanting to put out there is that I'm more than a salesperson. I bring more than sales to my business. I'm bringing encouragement bringing understanding and equipping people to do what it is that they need to do. And so the relationship is what builds my business over being a salesperson. And so I don't say that or utilize that to be deep, but it is what I believe helps set me apart from other agents that are counting numbers, that are great marketers, that have beautiful billboards and mail outs for days. And it's no criticism to how they're growing and developing their business. But for me, my business is more than about sales. It's about building relationships and encouraging and equipping people to get to the end result. That answer your question?
Yes. So going back to credit, another question. If a person doesn't have the mid 600s, what are some of the things they can do to increase their credit score in a positive way? And I'll stop there because I got a continuation.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty loaded question. I only say that because every scenario is different. It could be a low credit score because you have a lot of debt and it's been late and not paid off, and you know, things that have gone into you know, delinquent status, credit cards that might have been closed out. Maybe it's the amount of time you've had credit that matters. You know, someone who's had credit for a year versus someone who's had credit for 10 years, that's a different implication on your report. So that is a really loaded question. I would love to answer that more one-on-one so that I can be specific to your scenario and not have you guessing. And I also like to say that, you know, in real estate, we have teams. And so you'll find that your realtor is not going to be the person with all the answers, but we're the person that should be helping get those answers and get you connected to people that can get those answers. When I was in the situation with the scenario where the person had no credit, I, the realtor with years of experience, sat down with that person and someone who was a credit repair person, and we figured it out for that particular scenario. And because that person became our resource, I wasn't necessarily the direct resource. So there are a lot of things that I can't answer, but there are a lot of times that I make sure I let my client know I'm doing you a disservice of trying to answer certain things that are not in my realm of expertise. And so that's why it becomes a scenario where there are 3 of us at the table instead of just the 2 of you. So, but again, that is something I can definitely start a conversation on, and I'll share my contact information to make sure that you know how to reach me so that we can be more specific about where you may or may not be.
Okay, when I purchased a home, and it's been some years ago in Tallahassee, when I started the process, because my credit was jacked up due to my not understanding credit and other stuff, I went through the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium to get down payment assistance, went through the class and all of that. So one of the first questions they asked me looking for a home, what is your dream home and what would you settle for? Could you kind of dive into that a little bit? Because people thinking, okay, my first home is going to be this 4-bedroom, 3-bath brick, hardwood floors. I had all that, but then I had to
pull back.
So could you kind of explain?
So that's a great question. And it actually, you led into a point that I thought to make from the previous question as well. So we'll overlap those. But here, again, as I mentioned, in Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, I am one of the partner agents with them and do a lot of education with them as well. That is a great tool. If you have in your area, whatever area you're in, a first-time homebuyers program, here what they do is they do a preliminary 1-hour session just to get to know them, get to know their program. And then they do what one-on-one counseling session where they're looking and pulling your credit. They do what's called a soft pull, which means that it does not impact your credit score. And they sit down and go over the facts of your situation with you to say, this is what you need in order to get where you're trying to go. Or, hey, guess what? And I find this happening a lot of times. So I use this as encouragement for anybody on the line. A lot of times you find that, hey, you're ready now. You don't need 6 months. And so having that conversation is very encouraging. And so know that there are times that we're a little harder on ourselves than what's real. And so having that conversation and scheduling that now is advantageous, because a lot of times it's not costing you anything to go into these programs and get that counseling, other than the cost of your credit report itself, which usually for them to pull your 3 credit reports is anywhere between 12 and 20 bucks. So it's an investment worth making in yourself, because this is what this whole process is about. And so this is one of the smallest amounts of investment that you make in that process. So go ahead and do it. But going back to deeper into your question, yeah, first time home ownership is not necessarily built around your dream home for some. Some people can acquire that, but sometimes we're getting where we need to go so we can build some equity to get into our next home. So yes, you do want to be mindful that it's not that you're gonna, find a house with the roof caving in to compromise, but you want to be able to know that, well, maybe I won't get that 2-car garage this time, but the home that I can afford has a 1-car garage. Or maybe it's not a 2-story house that, on an acre, but it's a 1-story house on half an acre. And so, first time home ownership is about getting you started. Many people are not owning home for 30 years anymore. We're just a different generation. We're in a different time. Doesn't mean that you can't, but just know that this puts you in a position to earn some money with your real estate in order to get to the next level, to get to that dream home. Does that kind of answer the question, LT? Does that address what you were asking? Okay, great.
So going all the way back, well, before I ask another question, does anybody else have questions that's on the line currently? Either put it in the chat, raise your hand, or unmute your mic. Oh, and no. So going back to, I can't, what was your major in college, or what did you want to do? And tell me how you felt with you're not doing what you thought you was going to do. Now you're doing this. How, I mean, you did talk about it, but
so I'm gonna go back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back even a little further than that. So remember I told y'all that my pastors had challenged me some years back to go back to being a little girl. What is it that you had a desire to do, etc. So as a little girl, I remember wanting to be a school teacher. I love kids and all things. And I said, okay, well, as I got older in the news, there was a situation where the school teacher was, one of the students got like an F in class or something, and he shot his school teacher. And I'm like, okay, don't want to do that. I remember growing up and my grandmother was like, girl, you make an awesome attorney, because, I'm a talker and I'm an advocate. And, I want people treated fairly. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I want to do that. And I got in middle school and took civics. And we had an assignment where there was the defendant and the plaintiff. And basically the defendant had burnt the American flag or something. And so of course they were taking this person to court for doing whatever. And you had to kind of pull from the hat which side you were on. And I was on the defendant's side. And I was like, but I don't agree what they did. Like, how do I represent this person? I don't agree about what they did. And so immediately I was like, oh, that's not for me. I guess I'm not gonna be an attorney. I get in high school, and a family friend was talking to me, and they were like, oh, you should be a pharmacist, because pharmacists make a lot of money and all these things. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, okay, sure. That's how I wound up applying to go to FAMU. I'm thinking I'm going for pharmacy, but God was structuring something different behind the scenes that I had no idea about. And like I say, when I got to FAMU and I took chemistry 101 and couldn't pass the class, okay, guess I won't be doing that either. Better find something else to do. And so college was quite the journey. And part of it was because I did not know what I really wanted to do. That's something that I was like really gonna buy into, put the work in for, etc. And so, like I said, I was in the credit union system, the banking system. I loved it. But when I got my degree, they weren't willing to compensate me accordingly. So they was like, okay, well, I guess I better find something else to do yet again. And remember I told you in my story that, God placed me here in what I'm doing now. And in a situation where somebody say that they lost their job, but no, he took me out the job to execute what he had already given me instructions to do that I was not doing myself. And so I found myself in real estate. Saying all that to say, I just got through talking to you all about the first time homebuyer education that I do. That's the teacher, right? So, and getting, opportunities to do this is like the teacher side. This is being able to educate and let people know that they can do this, encouraging. Then when I'm dealing with transactions and somebody's not treating the seller or buyer fairly, or I'm trying to make sure that the deal gets to closing, I'm the advocate. It's like a form of law. We're not attorneys, we're not practicing law, but that advocate, that person in me that wants that person to be treated fairly, to get where they're trying to go, that's present. That side that I'd be using in law. So saying that to say, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, when you ask me the question that way, I'm doing it all. I didn't see it that way, but I do now.
Okay. Say, and Apostle Emery, Apostle Leslie are my pastors as well. The Bible, and yes, Slick is not a religious-based organization, but it is a lot of our practices and our policies and ideas are biblically based.
Mhm.
The Bible says God makes known the ending at the very beginning. The Bible also says, before we were formed in the belly of our mother's womb, he ordained us. Whatever that ordination is, whatever he has ordained us, it's already placed in us. So the young people that will listen to this video or that's online, yeah, our path's going to be different, but whatever's in you, whatever he's placed in you, you will do. It may not look like it, may not seem like it, but all things do work together.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
to keep that in mind. So with that being said, do we have any other questions? Anybody would like to briefly share about their path to their passion, which of course is your purpose, which this is why this program is called Purpose, Passion, and Career. I don't want to do the eeny, meeny, miny, mo, because there's a couple of people on here that can share a couple of things. So I would rather for you to volunteer and say a little something before I start calling people out.
Uh-oh.
So nobody.
Now I can I don't mean to cut you off, LT. Let me, if you don't mind, let me share my real estate story actually as a owner. So I was looking to purchase real estate back when I was a college student here in Tallahassee, and I got all excited and I could do this. I ain't had no money. But I'm like, okay, and they had some programs in line. And matter of fact, some of the programs were so good that I was actually on my way to buying some brand new construction. So anyway, first time I got through the process, I'm under contract, everything's going well. And student loan. I know y'all need to hear this. Student loan. I had not too long been out of college, and I miscalculated when my student loans were supposed to start being paid back. And I got a late notice, and that late notice hit my credit report. And right before closing, I was not a homeowner. Discouraging, right? Well, then after that, a few years later, still young, not a lot of money, reached out to a relative that was willing to, give me what I needed to get in the door. Had some first time home buyer stuff, in line. And I'm under contract, and I'm scared. Fear gripped me so hard. I came out of that contract faster than I signed it. Okay, So then now I'm out here selling real estate all these years later, and I'm still not a homeowner. And I was actually married for 4.5 years, and we were trying to have home ownership. Matter of fact, the story about helping a person get credit because they didn't have a credit score was a part of our story. And everything's like looking good. We're on our way. We got, I'm the realtor. I'm gonna make some money too to put back in our transaction, all these things. And we looked and looked and looked, and it never happened. As a matter of fact, part of why it didn't happen was because the lender misinformed us about what we were eligible for. So we missed a lot of great deals that should have happened, but apparently shouldn't have happened. And I was in the middle of a divorce. And if you remember, I told you my pastors looked out for me like they looked out for anybody else. I had a room to live in the process. And I remember being in that room, and I say, God, I'm about to be 40 years old. I have not lived in anybody's house since I was 17 when I left for college. And I am not about to turn 40 living in anybody else's house. It was great living there. I love the support. It wasn't about them. It was all about, this is not the end story for me. And I knew that the market was going up. And so the cost of homes was like, it was pretty moderate, but the cost of renting had gone up significantly because we had a great deal where we rented at. I said, Lord, I need a home before my 40th birthday. And I need to, and this was about the month of May, my birthday's in August. I said, and I needed to be affordable as the rent was where I lived when I was married, because I don't want to go over that amount. I can't go over that amount. And what we tried to do in 4.5 years, and what I tried to do all the years prior on my own, I was with a friend of mine, and he and I had been looking at places, and one morning this property popped up, and I had to have seen it the second it went on the market. So we had seen places leading up to me praying this prayer, okay? I prayed the prayer. The next day, this property comes on the market that morning. I called my friend, I was like, hey, we gotta go see this property. We gotta go now. So he's like, let's go. So we come and see the property. I love it. And I went ahead and did not leave out the driveway until I wrote the offer. I submitted the offer, and they accepted my offer. We did a little bit of like this, what they counter offered me was nothing. And it wasn't even a monetary thing. It was, very minor, something that I was quickly like, yeah, let's do it. And I said, okay, Lord. So it takes 30 to 45 days usually to close on a property, right? And my birthday, let's say, was in 28 days. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I'll take it. No complaint, I'll take it. Listen, usually properties close in 30 to 45 days. At this time, properties were closing in more like 45 days because of some of the other things that were going on in the industry. I closed in 21 days, which means that it was a week before my birthday, if not sooner. And I was like, okay, Lord, I love the nudge. I knew it was God. Not only that, when I closed on this home, it did not have the homestead exemption, and I can share more about what that means later, but it did not have the homestead exemption on the taxes for the home, which means that I was paying full price for taxes in my mortgage. Well, your first payment is due 60 days after closing. So we're saying I might have had 2 or 3 payments for the rest of the year. And at the first of the year, I was able to acquire homestead exemption because I was eligible for it. By the time we got to the homestead exemption, my payment was less than the rent that I paid at the property that I had asked the Lord to match. And still is today. So I just shared it to say, there have been times where I thought I should have had it. I thought I should have acquired it. I got too scared because I had gotten no's and it wasn't comfortable, and times where I wasn't ready. But when I look back, one of those situations that fell through, I had a job transition and I took a different position with a pay cut because I wanted that position. Different things happened that let me know that I could have possibly been in situations that I wasn't signing up for because the time was now and not then. And so again, I encourage people, even if you've gone through this journey or made attempts to and strides to, and it hasn't happened, I work with people on a regular basis to make sure, like, hey, this doesn't mean this is not going to happen. This is going to happen, and we're going to do what it takes so that it happens. So I just want to be an encouragement, like I said, for people that have tried and it hasn't come together yet, for people that have been too fearful to try and haven't tried yet. I'm telling you, call me. We can have a conversation and help make sure we put you on the right path, even if you're not in my area, to make sure that we get you where you need to be.
Okay. So we are right at 1 hour. Do we have any questions? We're about to close it on out, but do we have any questions? Comments? You can put it in the chat or raise your hand. Yes, Pastor Emery?
I just want to say one thing is ReAndra did a very good job communicating. Listening that you're communicating, you did very well communicating, very clear, very precise in your communication. So I just want to commend you on that. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice. So this brings us to the conclusion of our first Purpose, Passion, Career Program class for 2023. We want to thank Ms. ReAndra for pouring into speaking life to our youth, those who are on the line, youth at heart, those who are on the line, and the future youth that will listen to this on YouTube. We want to thank her for her expertise and sharing her passion, how she ended up where she is now. Again, I am Latanya Smith, the CEO and founder of Speak Life to Youth and Children, SLIC International. You can find out more about us on www.slickinternational.com. You can also check us out on Facebook as well, and LinkedIn and Instagram. We currently don't have a Twitter feed at the moment, but thank you all so much for attending, participating, and the last words will come from Ms. ReAndra.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank, I see a couple of former clients and existing clients on the line. Thank you all so much for your support. You were a part of those that I talked about in my village, and I appreciate you all dearly. Some of us, we may not have worked through the transaction together, but you entrusted me to help you get there. And so thank you for that. Thank you, SLIC, for the opportunity. I cannot thank LT enough, because I told you she does not take no for an answer. So thank you for the opportunity to do this, leading up to more times in the future. And I look forward to speaking to anyone that has any questions. Again, my name is ReAndra Clayton. I'm currently a broker associate with Keller Williams Town and Country here in Tallahassee, Florida. I can be reached at 850-296-7322. Again, that's 850-296-7322. And I can also be emailed at keys, which is KEYS, at ReAndraRealtor.com. That's ReAndra, ReAndra, Realtor, ReAltor.com. Keys at ReAndraRealtor.com. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
And if nothing else, we see Pastor Leslie with her camera on. Good morning or good afternoon. And again, I want to thank you all. Ms. ReAndra will be back on toward the end of the year. We are hoping to have a first-time home buyer class for our young adults who are up to the age of 22, 23. Who may be already interested in purchasing property at a young age. So we will be in the works of having that. So those who are on the line, spread the word. If you have any teens, young adults who are looking to get their first property, we will be hopefully turning out our first-time home buyers program class through SLIC International. For our young adults. So if there is nothing else, have a good day. Thank you all for being a part of this. Have a great afternoon. Stay warm for those who are in this area because we were 28, 29 degrees here in Atlanta area. And I'm not sure what Tallahassee is or Florida or Tennessee. I think is probably what's colder than us. So y'all stay warm, stay bundled, stay safe, and stay loved. Love y'all. And y'all have a great day.
Take care.
Thanks.